Matt checked the locks on the door for the third time, not out of fear of an intruder, but simply for something to do. The other kids were all in their rooms, and not wanting to be in the company of Jay, who was pretending to be asleep, he chose rather to sit in the living room and watch a little bit of television while he waited for his mother to return. He had no idea what time she was going to be home, and she had not instructed him to stay up for her, but he still intended to be up when she returned. He was glad she was out of the house and doing something fun for herself, and he was doubly glad that she was out with the coach. He didn't care about the white thing. He just knew that the coach was a good man and he wouldn't hurt his mother. He thought about his father and wondered if he was betraying his memory. But then he thought about his mother and all the sacrificing she had done for them all the time and decided it was time for her to move on. Net was furious and wanted to break something. She lay in her bed with her back to her sister and fumed. She and her sister had planned to watch a movie tonight, but Vet was so busy texting Rife that she had completely forgotten about movie night. Net knew she could just remind her, but thought it felt too much like she was begging her sister for pity company, and she was not the begging kind. The thought that she didn't have anyone to text with at the moment also added to the frustration that was making her so hard to live with these days. She usually had 5 or 6 guys at once, all clamoring to get her attention, but for some reason, she wasn't on anyone's person of interest list, and it was a place she was not familiar with or liked very much. Ned got up and walked to the kitchen, not feeling like eating but looking for something to eat just the same. She looked at the contents of the fridge, and after finding nothing appetizing, she slammed the door and walked to the pantry. Disappointed again, she walked to the dining room window and looked outside with a look of abandonment on her face that caught her brother's attention. "You look like you lost your best friend. Leave me a Matt. Leave me alone, Matt. I don't feel like it tonight." "What is wrong with you?" "I said I don't feel like it." "You know what, Ned? You never feel like it, so what's new?" "Matt, I swear to God, if you don't leave me alone, stop swearing. Make me." "I don't know what your problem is, so shut up then." "Whatever," he said, sucking his teeth and turning his attention back to the television. He knew his sister was walking around with a chip on her shoulder, and he had attempted to humor her into a lighter mood, but he wasn't in the mood for her crabbiness, so he left her alone. His sisters were a complete puzzle to him, a puzzle he had long ago stopped trying to solve. They were spoiled, retarded, crazy, and still found reason to complain and whine. He never said anything about it to them or their mother because he also noticed that they made their mother happy with lots of hugs and kisses and girls' day trips to the nail salon and the mall. After his father had died, Matt had no idea how to reach out to his mother, but his sisters were able to give her all the attention and affection she needed. So he just stepped back and let them heal each other with girly stuff. He didn't feel left out because he and his mother had their own connection that made them both know it was all right. And now that their mother was finally getting attention from another man, the chance to make her heart smile, he was overjoyed. His mother was always doing things for other people, the church, and then the new kids. So in his opinion, She earned it. He hated himself for a while for getting into trouble at school, but he promised himself that he would never do anything like it again, and he knew he wouldn't. He had bent over backwards to assure his mother that she didn't have to worry about him, and he knew that she wasn't. Now, well, Jay was a different story, and he refused to dwell on him for a second, which brought him back to Net. All he could do was just shake his head since he had no control over his sister's behavior. For all he knew, she was PMSing. But whatever it was, she needed to get over it for their mother's sake. Net turned her back to her brother as tears threatened to spill from her angry eyes. Who did he think he was? He had no idea what she was feeling. He had his dumb sports and his stupid jock friends, and Mom was always forgiving him. He was a stupid boy, so he could care less if their mother was splitting her time up with so many people that she didn't have time for him anymore like she used to. It was bad enough that she had to share her mother with those God-forsaken half-breeds. Now she had to share her with the coach. It just wasn't fair, and she wanted everybody to die and leave her mother alone. She thought about the sisters sleeping upstairs and the young boy in her brother's room and wished she could put them on a one-way bus to China. She hated them with such a fierceness that her body actually shook from rage. When Jay had gotten arrested, she remembered the look of embarrassment and worry that was on her mother's face, and she wished the police had taken him away and never brought him back. This was her mother, and she was angry that she had to share her. Just then, the image of Chrissy hugging her mother flashed in her mind, and it was enough to force the tears to overspill her eyelids and slowly slide down her face. She remembered when she used to feel sad about anything, and all she had to do was crawl into her mother's bed, and without question, her mother would draw her close to her and kiss her forehead, kissing away all bad feelings of doubt and insecurity. But now that those monsters were living here, her mother was so busy, too busy being Super Mother of the Year, that there was no time for her own kids. No time for her anymore. No time for her. She wanted her mother to love her. She wanted her mother. She wanted love. And then suddenly the need to be loved was so strong that it became a physical pain in her stomach. Fine, she thought to herself. If her mother was too busy being a supermom to love her, then she would just find someone else to do the job. There were plenty of people that wanted to love her, and she was always telling them no. Well, she guessed it was high time for her to start saying yes. And with that, Net walked away from the window, and walking into her room, she ignored her sister's whispers into the telephone and climbed into bed. Vet had her eyes closed as she listened to Rife whisper to her how he was going to make her the happiest girl alive. She was physically in her bedroom, but in her mind, she was lying on his bed with his arms wrapped tightly around her. The war that was going on inside of her body and her mind was distancing her from her sister, and she was almost at a point that she didn't care. She never knew that she could want to be with someone so bad that nothing, and no one else mattered. She used to put her education and Bible study before all fun and games, but that was before Rife. That part of her that used to run from sin and run to Christ was being tested, and she was very much aware that she was losing. The sad thing was not that she was backsliding from Christ, but that feeling of unconcern was growing every day and being replaced by feelings of passion. The old vet was still around and screamed at her from time to time to get herself together. But she was overridden by the new vet, the one that wanted to surrender that most precious part of herself to the love of her life. She was sure that she and Rife would one day wed. So in essence, it would end up being all right since they would be husband and wife. That was the kind of thinking that filled her mind instead of her regents or her chores or her homework. And when her sister would try to get her to participate in any kind of conversation, it was clear that her mind was elsewhere. So she simply gave up and walked away. And now she was actually planning the day that she and Rife would make excuses to get away so that she could give all of herself to him. What about next Saturday? You can tell your mom you're going to that job fair they're having in Manhattan. That would never work. Mom knows I would never consider working and risk having my grades suffer. Oh, what if you tell her I need help with a class and you're meeting me at the library to tutor me? Then she'd tell me to take the two little ones with me. So what if we say we want to just go to the museum by ourselves and don't go to the museum? That way we're guaranteed to be alone. That sounds like a good idea. But you know Mom doesn't allow us to date alone. I have to have Net or Will with me. It's useless, Rife. We're never going to get a chance to be alone. Not true. We are going to be alone. And I am going to make sweet love to you. And you are going to make me the happiest man in the whole world. Oh, baby, I really do want to be with you, but we have to be careful. If Mom found out, I would literally die, just die. I would never be able to look her in the face again. Don't worry, baby. Nobody is going to find out. I promise on my life. I'm going to sleep now. I have a test tomorrow and I need to be rested. I love you, baby. I love you too. Good night. Net, are you sleeping? I was until you started yelling my name. So where do you think Mom and the coach went on their first date? Sitting up abruptly and snapping on the lights, Net glared at her sister and viciously hissed at her. Are you kidding me, Vet? About what? What is wrong with you? She answered with genuine surprise in her voice. You've been talking to Loverboy all night, and you haven't said 2 words to me all evening, and now you want to talk to me about Mommy? Leave me alone, Vet. Whatever. Sucking her teeth, Vet angrily turned over in her bed and fumed at her sister for snapping at her. Then her anger slowly began to be replaced with guilt. Her sister was right. She had been preoccupied lately with Rife and she knew she and her sister always communicated with each other. That's not to say they never argued. They had their share of fights, but it was always her that waved the white flag and started the dialogue, so they were speaking again. But just like that, her guilt was replaced with feelings of resentment. She was not giving in this time, and she was not backing down this time. If Ned wanted to talk, she would have to be the waver of the flag. It was a new day, and Vet had finally awakened.